What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the pre-med pre-game, our short segment before the actual main event, where we will talk about things. One thing that we learned from each class this week. Or not? Wait, one thing we learned from a class this week. That's different from what we said last week.
Correct. It can't be in the same class as we said last week, or I guess maybe 2 weeks prior. Or do you guys want to do just last week?
Last week.
All right. So
yeah,
we
it's
can
just
do
like
stuff
the
from
previous week.
All right, sounds good. All right, who wants to go first? I went first last time.
I guess I could go first.
All right, cool.
And I'm going to count this as a class because I'm taking credit for it. It's for research.
All right, that's fair.
So when I had a research conference, and I'll talk more about it later, but something I learned was that the actual drug that I wanted to use as a model drug isn't actually as effective as I thought it was.
What drug is it?
It's fluorescein. It's a fluorescent type of model drug that allows you to monitor different release kinetics. I'm sure you've heard this from Dr. Islam.
Somewhat.
Yeah, a little bit. And that was like something I had in my poster presentation. And someone who's actually dealt with it was like, hey, just a heads up, this actually might not be as useful for you because of like A, B, C.
Oh, wow.
And then the cool thing is they gave me some things that helped them overcome it. So it's another model drug called Nile Red, something red. And they said it was a lot more effective in observing the effects and the release kinetics of that model, of like a model drug being absorbed. But obviously, that's a long ways from now, but that was something I learned.
Cool. Well, that's helpful.
So hopefully it saves time in the future.
Do you know who the person was that told you? Is just like professor?
His name is Chris. It was an undergraduate student currently applying to grad school.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Thanks, Chris. Shout out, Chris. What about you, Nathan?
The thing is, he was a little tipsy. So I don't know. We'll see.
Okay,
really?
They have like wine and stuff like that at the ACS conference. So I think he might have had maybe a cup or two extra.
Yeah,
but it was a fun time. A lot of people were cool.
Yeah, Mo went on a little trip. He's going to talk about that more. But okay, for the pregame, I learned something in DNA Dinosaurs. You guys have been wanting to hear about this.
Neutral theory?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about neutral theory.
Oh my gosh, I guessed it.
Todd has been curious about this.
Is that the evolution thing?
Yeah, it's an evolution
I told
thing.
him about it because I thought it was interesting.
No, it's pretty cool. Okay,
I told you.
Okay, let the teacher teach. Go, Nathan, go.
Neutral theory is basically the theory that evolution is controlled mostly by genetic drift, like by a long ways, other than natural selection. So natural selection has like a much less impact on evolution.
So for those who don't know, what is genetic drift and what is natural selection?
Genetic drift is simply random mutations in our genetic code that become randomly, I would say, like say you have like a mutation in one species or one organism, that species of a population, and that mutation becomes it's just randomly that one organism actually like is able to mate with a lot of I guess organisms in the population, and that one mutation becomes fixated in that species, so it just drifts into the rest of the population, if that makes sense. So it's random. It's based on a random mutation.
Is it always based on mutations?
All evolution is based on mutations.
Well, I'm pretty, as far as I was like concerned in terms of my definition of it, like was like, or maybe this is just a different definition, but it's just random chance events that occur in a population, not necessarily mutation. Although mutation is a random chance event.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's also things like if a hurricane came through a population, that could be considered an event of genetic drift. Like it's not just limited to mutation. At least that's what I thought.
Watch, Nathan's gonna put it down on his like exam, and then Dr. She's like, I never said that. Wrong. No, but no, I agree with you though. I mean, I've heard that before.
What was it? Bio 205 I said.
Yeah.
No, that's correct.
But that's just, I don't know. I was thinking maybe it's just an alternate definition or something. Because I know that sometimes there's like differences.
I think that's like the main thing, but then what Todd was saying also adds to it.
Correct. So just random events based on random mutations that cause one allele to become prevalent in the species, much more. Natural selection is the opposite. It is non-random evolution based on the fitness of a certain trait in survival. So if a trait is mutated into a species and it's very fit, it undergoes positive selection, so it's able to go into more of the population. And if it's not a good trait, meaning it's bad for the species, meaning like it kills them, it'll deselect, or it goes under purifying selection, so out of the population. So
a great example of that is actually horns with certain, I think it was sheep or goats, right? If it's too big, the horns are too big, then that kind of group of, let's say, sheeps, is it goats or sheeps that have horns?
Both.
I think it's like a
rams
certain,
have horns.
Yeah, it's a
Rams,
certain gender of sheep or something.
Yeah, exactly. Male sheep have horns.
Where if it's like too big, right, which could seem like a very big benefit, yeah, they're going to be able to protect everything, right? But they're expected to do that, so then they can't mate as much. But then if their horns are too small, then they can't be protective. So you need to have just the right like length or size of horns, and that would be what's really favored by the environment and activities of that group.
Yeah, and an increase in fitness just refers to an increase in the ability to pass on your genetics to other generations. So
reproduction.
Going back to what neutral theory is, it's the idea that genetic drift controls this mostly because mutations that are negative, meaning they're going to be purified out of the population, are, they exist. But since they get purified right out, they don't really matter because the mutation, that genetic sequence gets right out of the population almost every single time.
By like the organism dying?
Yeah, exactly. Or like anything like that. If they die, if they're less fit.
Which makes sense. I mean, like, you're not always going to have 100 individuals within like a group of 1,000 having that mutation. It's typically going to be like one. And then a lot of the time that mutation might not even be like that drastic, where it's just a silent mutation. Yeah. So if something drastic did happen with the mutation, there's a very good chance that, at least from my understanding of what Todd has told me, from what you told him, is that, is that that mutation will have a negative impact, and eventually it would lead to like less fitness, and then that individual would just die out, and then that mutation won't really get passed down.
Okay. Yes, but I haven't gone on to the other part of it, which is positive selection. If something mutates into a population that is very positive, it, just like you said, there's only one of those mutations. And so even if that is really beneficial to the species, it's not always going to be seen to transfer to all the rest of the population because of genetic drift. Exactly. So, so for that reason, in most, like, I don't know about most, but very many types of populations, neutral theory is what's driving evolution and not natural selection. So it's really crazy to think about that. Most evolution that's happened in the history of time is due to just random chance.
Which makes sense. I mean, like, that's how we came to existence,
obviously that makes
right?
sense.
I mean, yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is just one theory out of hundreds of evolutionary theories.
True. It's more of a theory that acts on like one specific population. So like there are species right now that are under neutral theory, meaning they don't have much selection happening in their species.
So it's a lot of statistics.
Yes, exactly. So it's not really a general theory about the whole world. It's a theory that can be applied to different populations, and you can test mathematically whether a species is under neutral theory based on the chances of a mutation being neutral or like a non-synonymous and synonymous mutations occurring. If you have more non-synonymous, then you're going to have more purifying selection. So it gets a little complicated.
All the high schoolers right now are just like,
yeah. It gets a little complicated. And
no, but that's what I like about it, though. It's like there's a lot of uncertainty with it. So it allows you to make your own opinions, like educated opinions on it. And that's, I think, one thing I've kind of noticed with science. Like, you go through the first, like the 100, 200 level classes, and a lot of it is like, hey, these are the theories that we're going to abide by, and here you go, and this is what you have to think. But then as you go into the upper divisions, things start like saying, well, actually, this is another possibility, and those things that we taught you aren't really that applicable. And I to a certain extent, like, I understand you want to kind of build that framework at first, especially for someone who's just coming into college, right? But at the same time, I've always kind of liked that idea of being able to think on my own and make my own educated opinions. And I think that would have been really interesting to have my freshman year. Just kind of like when learning about all these different theories and kind of like evolution, really. because you've been taught that exact like theory. Hey, these are the things that affect evolution. Like all of high school, a lot of us have taken AP Bio, Bio honors, whatever it is, and that comes up like periodically. But eventually, once you get to college, I think that's where you need to start like really bringing everything together and helping students make their own educated opinions.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. And,
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just saw Todd's eye like just vibrate up and down. That was so weird.
My eyes have been twitching for like 3 weeks now.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I've been trying to sleep, but could be sleep, hydration. I don't know.
Reference to our previous episode, fatigue and sleep, how to deal with that.
So that doesn't happen.
Watch it.
So if you wanted to see Todd's eye twitch, go on our TikTok or YouTube channel
and yawn and everything.
Yeah, I mean, to be like, I guess I don't know if this is really like to counter, but it's kind of just I just want to say like it's also when you're taking these lower division classes, a lot of times it's like building blocks.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
In order to understand like this concept, this more advanced applied concept that Nathan talked about, you have to understand the basics, right? And I think for us, we took AP Bio, so we kind of had those basics, those foundations set. So that way, when we got to college, we kind of, we already had these things, which is why it would have been cool for us to learn it maybe back then. But, not everyone is on that same like kind of foundational level. So it's just kind of like, gotta build it up first before you can actually start applying.
Totally. Yeah. Honestly, at the end of the day, like not everyone's going to come in super prepared with like AP Bio and stuff. So
yeah, that's cool.
It's definitely an approach.
Yeah.
Cool. But before this turns into like 16 minutes of pre-gaming with theory,
yeah, let's move on to
Let's move on to Todd.
Yep.
I don't really know. I mean,
Todd's constantly like clicking.
I go back to neuroscience, I guess, because if I don't do biochem and I don't do neuroscience, it's either Spanish or sociology.
Let's hear Spanish.
I mean, we don't.
He's gonna be like, I learned how to say hi today.
We learned about like using doubt for subjunctive. So like if there's doubt or emotion, and followed by like K, then you have to use subjunctive.
Let's hear it. Give us an example.
I don't even remember that.
Huh?
I don't even remember that.
I think it's hard. So in neuroscience, I learned. I mean, I could, but I don't know. My speaking is not like, I don't know. I just don't have like, my accents and stuff aren't that great.
Yeah, I get that. I would be terrified to be put on the spot, to speak Spanish.
I could do it. I just don't want to be put on the spot.
I get it.
Yeah.
The next Instagram meme.
Yeah.
Pretty much trying to speak Spanish.
This week in neuroscience, we learned about like brain control interfaces, which are basically like systems that can be integrated like into like brain functions to help with like a lot of motor disorders. And so they work in like a 4-part series. The first one is like it extracts information, say from like a brain region or some sort of thing, and then like it gets a signal, and then it extracts, it's like a computer, it extracts like what the important signal is while removing the background signal, and then it translates it into like a signal that can be like utilized by the brain. So maybe like an electrical impulse or something like that. So it processes it and then translates it, and then it can send it out to like a different brain region or to stimulate like muscle movement or some sort of part to have like functionality for the user. So that's kind of like the 4 basic parts of like a brain controlled interface that a lot of people are doing research on. Because we had like 2 guest speakers come by from UCI, and they talked about how they're using deep brain electrodes to basically not just like have someone be able to control a prosthetic arm, but also feel sensation from that prosthetic arm. Because one pretty cool like point they brought up was the fact that it's only half the battle to be able to control a prosthetic with your brain. The other half is also being able to feel too.
That's
right?
true.
To get feedback from the prosthetic.
That's crazy though. Like imagine not having something connected to your actual body. Yeah. One way it is, but like
one thing that was crazy is the fact that like they have these deep brain implanted electrodes that stimulate I think it's either like the basal ganglia or the thalamus, which are basically just like parts of the brain that are like pretty deep inside of it. And they put in the electrode and they stimulate it with like it's pretty high voltage. It's like maybe 300 volts or something. It's like a lot of electricity is what they said. And it works, and they don't exactly know how it works, but they know that it works.
So they just tested it and were like, fingers crossed it works.
Yeah, and so it works, and it really like it helps with certain motor disorders. Like they showed a video of someone like before versus after, and before they had like their gait was obviously like not right, and they were just walking very kind of like not normally, but then after using like the deep brain stimulation, they were like walking like normally. So I thought that was pretty cool. Even if they don't know how it works.
I think what would be really cool with sensing is imagine having like a metal prosthetic, putting your finger in cold water, it knows it's cold. Putting your finger in like hot water, it knows it's hot.
That is pretty
cool. That would be really cool.
So yeah, it's the whole challenge of being able to get that, feedback from a machine and then interpreting it into a signal, like, wherever the arm is or wherever the nerve is are cut off, to interpret it into like a brain region, which theoretically sounds possible. It's all electricity, if that's what you believe. Some people believe that like
it's crazy.
Different theories. There's different theories of mind, but that's a little bit more philosophical.
All right.
We're getting closer and closer to that line between human and cyborg, guys.
What defines a cyborg?
That's a reference to a very old Theory Pre-Med episode.
Nathan's popping off with the references today.
Yeah. You guys should absolutely watch that one.
Yeah, all right. So I guess I'll conclude our pregame. So this concludes our pregame. And I know we've gotten what? Do you have something?
We got to introduce the episode.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Give me a second. There's a reason I'm doing this.
Okay.
So I'm going to conclude the pregame, but we've gotten some feedback from our fellow Radio Chapman users that we need to have some type of transition music. But we don't have that ready, so I'll do this. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Theory Pre-Med.
Okay, pretty good.
So that was our music.
No, that wasn't bad. It wasn't bad.
It wasn't bad at all.
It wasn't abysmal.
Here, I'll try again. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba.
That's a little too long there.
It was too long? Okay, let's just go into Theory Pre-Med.
All right. Theory Pre-Med is a podcast following the journey of 3 pre-med students, Mo, Todd, and Nathan. We talk about our paths and experiences as we bring in guests who will connect pre-meds around the world. If you're interested in or thinking about med school or healthcare, our podcast will give you the ultimate student perspective.
Ooh.
And as always, thank you to Chapman Radio for giving us a space to record today. The intro it's always so hard for me to read, and I don't know why.
You know what I've noticed? You just have to put your own touch to it.
Yeah.
Like as long as you're around that same central
just be
message,
casual.
And you like pop off with like the student.
Ultimate student
perspective. I think you could get a lot from your own. And I've been trying to do.
Should I restart?
Yeah,
it?
let's go. Let's hear it.
What is up, everyone? I'm Todd. I'm joined by my co-hosts Nathan and Mo. We are 3 pre-meds here at Chapman University, and we are a podcast. We will bring in guests who will connect you to us and other pre-meds worldwide. And we hope to give you our perspectives and synthesize it into something that is ultimate.
You got a little too creative with it.
Right? And thank you, Chapman Radio, for giving us the space to record today.
You see, that started so high up. It was going up and up and up. And then it went down. It went back up. And
I was vamping. It's difficult.
You got so creative trying to synthesize it.
No, it was a good go.
Okay,
it was good
it was really good, though.
Good till it
I like the energy at the beginning, for sure.
All right, so how was everyone's week?
For me, it was pretty normal. Although, this week was a little difficult. Let's see. I mean, I started the week off, and I just had a lot of work again.
Fair enough.
And for me,
it's midterm season.
Yeah, I feel like for me, the one thing that's like really kind of difficult is the fact that this semester more than ever, like I'm in a classroom just for so much of the week, every single week, and I feel like it makes things pretty difficult. I mean, like Tuesdays, I have like 3 hours basically between classes and like meetings and stuff, and then the very next and I'm not done till like 9 or 10 p.m. on Tuesdays, and then the very next day I basically have stuff all the way from like 9 to like 5 p.m. So it kind of gets difficult, and just having so many classes.
I totally feel that, especially this year. Like, I know Monday and Tuesday, we literally stay in school till 10, because of like we have these long days for those days, and on Wednesdays it's I have my SI session till 6:30, and then I typically try to stay like an extra 30 minutes to answer questions, which I don't get paid for, but it kind of sucks. I wish I could get paid for that.
What?
For that extra 30 minutes, because I'm doing that on like my own will.
You're telling me your SI sessions are 2 hours and 30 minutes long?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Because no, it's like a lot of the Gen Chem students are like having a hard time with the studying material, so I'm trying to go a little slower, like constantly asking after every specific objective, like, hey, do you guys have any questions? And like really putting. I think it's been a little helpful.
Things kind of go slower, and
with like Gen
no,
stuff.
that's good that you're doing that.
Even for me, I wrote like 3 questions and it took 2 hours. I mean, one of the questions was really long because we're doing like the whole like those big bubbles with all the processes now.
Oh.
So that took a long time. But I also try to make mine fun, and I try to like insert fun facts about like certain things. Like today I talked about fermentation, so I talked about lactic acid fermentation and ethanol fermentation, and I was like, this one's used to make beer. This one happens when you exercise, and that's why your muscles hurt. Pretty cool. I try to make it fun.
Just long weeks in general.
Cool. I had a great SI session this week though, because the OChem students had their lab midterm, and so I got a full room, and it was really good. Like I felt like I was able to teach them well, and they understood. And they asked a lot of questions, but it still wasn't 2 hours. Like it was an hour and a half at most.
I mean, a lot of the time when you go up to like into the higher division courses, you kind of learn how to like what type of material to expect on a test, how to study it. But when it's your first semester in college, you need a lot of like holding hand type thing.
Yeah.
And just guidance. And I want them to like leave the SI session and be like, hey, I actually gained something out of it. It's not like I wasted 2 hours of studying opportunities, you know. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping I'm able to do that. But
yeah, well, good work.
We'll find out at the end of the semester when they do that review survey.
Oh,
they don't tell you the results.
They don't?
No.
What's the point?
Then I don't know.
How are you supposed to get better if you're bad?
That'll be interesting. I'll talk to Diana about it. I'll ask her why. Anyways, how was your week, Nathan? What else did you do?
Okay, so I had the good SI session. Also, I've been doing a lot of chess club stuff.
Nathan's been popping off with the chess stuff.
Oh,
he has stuff in the center, like piazza over school.
I've been making connections. I've been in communication with chess.com. Oh, that's been crazy. I'm getting free diamond memberships for chess.com for a couple of so it's just like a membership at chess.com that you get, and like you get to do like unlimited puzzles, unlimited game review and stuff like that. So it's really good. It's like $100 a year. So we're gonna get that, and we're communicating with them. We're gonna get free merch, access to like tournaments, access to prize money and stuff like that. So that's coming up for sure. Also, we just had the National Chess Day event in the Piazza that Mo was talking about, and that was really cool. We got a lot of good reception, a lot of attendance at that. What we had is like multiple tables set up with chessboards at the Piazza, which is like the central area in Chapman with the fountain. And we just invited people passing by to just play games, and ended up really good. We got a lot of signups for the club and everything. So we're gonna do that again this semester, where we're trying to do it again, which is a lot of work, but everybody wanted to do it again. So
it definitely has a lot of potential.
Yeah,
and we saw it at the Piazza.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the club is growing so much. It's growing so much that we might be outgrowing our room. Unfortunately,
you could move to Beckman 404.
Yeah, I'm thinking so. Yeah, we might have to do that, or like I'm thinking maybe the AF space.
Yeah, you have a lot of options.
Would be good. So there's some options, but I really like our room, so I don't want to leave it. Like the ideation lab in Swenson Hall is so perfect for the chess club because it's like enclosed, but when you're walking by, you can see, oh look, there's chess, and it's like, and in the engineering lab, like that's perfect.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So. Hopefully we won't have to leave that, but they are like adjusting the max capacity for the room, unfortunately. So we'll see about it. But anyway, Mo, you're up.
I would call this week as a research week. I think I hit. I hit like 30 hours of research this week.
No way, dude.
And I mean, like 6 hours of it was just a conference, but it was so like I think it was Monday night. I texted Todd. Was that Monday night?
I don't know.
Okay. Anyways, one of the days earlier this week, I literally stayed in Keck till like 3:30 doing like research for my poster presentation, and then that actually was a ton of fun. So I flew out to Vegas on Thursday morning, got there around in the morning, checked into the hotel, got food and all that. By the time I was done doing that, had to dress up, go down to the poster presentation, and I'm not kidding, like I'm still gaining back my voice right now. That's why it's so raspy.
Wow.
It's because it was like 4 hours straight of talking, and like I would be talking to one group, and then there was another group who would come and like start listening in, and then like it was just a constant cycle. And it was like professors, and actually this one company who works with the military came to me and gave me like their business card. They're like, we're very interested in hiring you out of like undergrad.
What?
And yeah, they're like, we'll pay for your PhD if you're interested in doing a PhD. And on top of it, you're like you'll obviously be working with them through your PhD, guaranteed 150K or above. And then once you get your PhD, they said it was, I think, over $600,000, all their PhDs. But I don't know. I want to do medicine, so I was like,
dang, man.
I don't want to be rude and be like, nah. But I was like, yeah, let me get your information, you know. And I don't think it hurts getting information and making this network connections.
Absolutely.
So, but it was really cool, like seeing people really interested, and I had a lot of positive feedback from different professors, different people in the field, and I gained a lot of like different perspectives on it. Because when you're working on a project, you're so tunnel vision on a lot of the different results you're getting. But then someone who's not like exactly too familiar with it will have a different perspective on it and start asking those questions that you might not have thought about. Or even they might have, let's say something you're looking into doing, they might have experienced it and not really succeeded with it. And they could tell you, like, for example, the fluorescence model drug, like, hey, this might not work, but here are some things I did that helped me. So that could save a lot of time. So all those things definitely super helpful. Got to meet another group from Idaho, and then we were going to go out with them on the strip and like get dinner and stuff. So that was fun. And I went with Blake, one of our classmates. Who was
amazing,
really cool.
dude.
It was a ton of fun. But one thing I'll say, this is kind of a funny story, and it's a little side note. And you guys could comment on it too. We met a professor, and then his entire thing. I think, again, I like to think about positivity and really respecting people. But that one professor I felt was very not really focused on the student experience. Like he literally said to Blake and I, Mike, I have an OChem, like he teaches OChem and Gen Chem, but mainly OChem. He was like, my OChem class is a weed out class for medical school. And like, yeah, I understand OChem is difficult, right? But that shouldn't, in my opinion at least, it shouldn't be what you build off a course on. It should be like, hey, yes, this is a difficult topic, but how am I going to support the students in succeeding in it? And I think that's what Chapman does a great job in. That's why a lot of our OChem faculty are liked, and that's why a lot of them are very welcoming, and their office hours are always filled. But it's kind of hard when like the professor like literally has an entire mindset on like, this is a weed out class. And yeah, OChem is a prereq for med school, but not everyone that's taking it is a pre-med student. There's actual chemists in it, and I don't think they should kind of like, if you think that's a weed out class, they shouldn't be impacted by that either, because they need to learn at the end of the day, because they're going to go into industry research and things like that. And if their entire experience with OChem was very difficult, unlikable, and things like that, that's going to deter them from that field. That's just my opinion on it. And then another thing with like Gen Chem students, like, yeah, they're coming into college and it's a big step, but his thing was like, I do think, for example, with practicals with lab, he was like, I purposely add like 20 extra chemicals that you don't need just to like make it more difficult on the students. Dude. And he was like, I always listen in on how like they're not really like understanding the protocols correctly, but I let them make mistakes, which is understandable. You learn from mistakes. But then he was like, at the end of the day, they're going to see their grade when I grade the lab report, and that's how they're going to learn their lesson. So it just felt like a lot of his feedback and like kind of structure of teaching was based on like how I'm going to trick the students in a way. And I don't agree with that. And that's one of the reasons I think this is more for high schoolers. Really understand how the professors teach within the major that you're interested in at school, because that's going to make a big difference. Because if you go into OChem and it's not likable at all, there's a very good chance you're not even going to give that subject another chance. Yeah. For example, we went through OChem. I loved it. I loved it more than Gen Chem, to be honest.
Me too. Right? I didn't love it. I liked it.
Yeah. And I think those are things important, because depending on where you're at, your experience is going to be different. And a lot of that, unfortunately, has to do with who's teaching it. Everyone has a different teaching style at the end of the day, and I think it's important when you're reaching out to different schools to really make sure that you know those teaching styles, just to make sure that that teaching style is really going to fit you. My opinion is on it.
Yeah, really good comments on like teaching and a good mindset to take in with you. If you're gonna like go in and give no support to the students and say, well, may the best students get the get the grade and I'm not going to help you. And that's just not the right mindset, I don't think, for teaching. So,
but I think education as a whole is taking a step forward in that. Like I was talking to Dr. Lopez today,
definitely.
where we're getting a lot more PhDs in like education and like supporting students. Like I know for physics, there might be a teacher coming in who is doing her whole PhD on really like, what was it exactly? Do you remember?
It was just education. Who got her PhD in education?
Yeah, like physics education. Yeah, for physics, and like really specializing in those difficult subjects to really make sure those students are being supported in a difficult subject. Because if you're able to support them and they're able to find some type of enjoyment, that effort and confidence is going to be built, and then that's how. Yeah, a lot more might succeed, but that means our future as a whole like society is going to be better too. And that's just my thought process on it. But
awesome.
Yeah, those are my little 2 cents. If any professors are reaching out there,
really good stuff. Glad the conference was really beneficial for you. I mean, Islam and some of the the lab was like, not sure about you traveling all this much for research, but it seemed like you had a really positive experience about it, and you met a lot of really good networking people. So awesome.
You know, one of the comments like that really made it worth it is obviously like, yeah, you learn a lot, but then a couple of like groups were like, this is probably the best presentation I've ever like heard.
Dang.
And like all the conferences we gone, and they're all like seniors, like graduate students, and one of them was even a professor. So like, and they were like, coming in at different points, and I was like,
kind of want to hear a presentation.
That's pretty cool. So it kind of like made all that effort that I put into it very worth it too. It was like, it was very motivating.
That's great, man.
Cool.
So you want to get into the main topic of the episode?
Yeah. So hopping into this week's topic is, does high school matter as a pre-med? Yeah. And I think that when we first came into college, or when we were freshmen / even just seniors applying, is we wondered, does high school actually matter when it comes to being a pre-med? If so, how does it? Or if not, what things don't really matter as much? And I think what we've generally learned is that in reality, it doesn't. It really kind of doesn't. In some ways it does.
Most of the times it doesn't.
But in most things it doesn't. But yeah, what were our high school experiences like? And I guess just to start out though, what high schools did we go to?
I went to Beckman High School, Irvine, California, and I actually sent an email to one of my professors a couple weeks ago. I was like, "Hey, thank you so much for the amazing curriculum that you have." Because yes, it was difficult, like a little more difficult than most high schools. But when I transitioned into college, I definitely felt prepared.
That's great. And you?
I went to University High,
which is known to be very difficult.
Very difficult school.
Like kind of close by to
Beckman.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to Notre Dame High School in Riverside. It's a private school, very small, 200 people per class maximum. I think my class had like 140. So
wow, 140.
Yeah, I know. Pretty crazy.
We had like 600, I think.
Yeah, I know. I loved it though. I knew everybody, and I was able to get involved with so much stuff. So how did our high school experiences kind of affect our college lives right now?
For me, I think that having a rigorous high school experience has really helped me out. Kind of like what Mo was saying. It helped me out with college. I feel like I haven't, or the fact that I've been able to get a good education from high school, even if it was maybe a little harder to get into, like to actually get college acceptances. When I actually am here, and what I've heard from a lot of other people who went to the same high school, is that it prepared you really well for college, and I think it has done just that.
I would say to a certain extent too, some classes like English courses were a lot more difficult than I'm seeing in college as well.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like all of them for me, but
especially
that could also
definitely
it could also be a byproduct of just maturity too.
That too, for sure.
Just being older, being more responsible than I was in high school, because I had some habits in high school that were like not good. I think maybe a freshman or sophomore year, there'd be times when like I'd get home from school, take like a 3-hour nap, get up, eat dinner, do homework, go to bed late, and I do that like every single day, and I'm pretty sure I did that for a while.
I would do that in high school, but minus the homework part.
Homework comes at 5 a.m.
Yeah. Homework is done during class. That was my high school thing.
That's what I did with math. It was so bad because we'd have like a 15-minute period where it was like she would do introductions, blah, 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 and then she would collect it. I get a class like 10 minutes early, between passing periods and just start scribbling anything because it was always completion. And I would get away with it every time. That was bad. That was
Man.
really
Yeah,
bad.
I would not be that type of person. I definitely did my homework like ahead of time because I was like, I need to get this done. I mean, I was never just the type to be able to do homework in class even because I just would either like not pay attention to what's going on in class or what. But
thing is,
for me, it was just math. I hated math so much.
Oh, really?
Math is hard.
Yeah.
I did the worst in math in high school as well, even though I'm like kind of okay at math. But like it was just on top of all the other stuff I was doing at the time when I was taking pre-calculus, I was doing baseball, theater. I think I did swim on top of it. And just like so many extracurricular activities, like, and I just did not have time to study ever. So, and that was most of my high school. I just did extracurriculars like the whole time. I was a theater kid as well. So,
but I think at the end of the day, I think where high school comes into play is, yes, you're building maturity, you're building your habits. So make sure those habits are good on
definitely.
Like Nathan and I, because when you get into college, like it kind of picks up pretty quick and you want to be able to make sure that you're able to fix those habits if you have them. But also if you don't have to worry about those habits, it makes it a lot easier of a transition. But also you want to make sure you're enjoying it. I think that's the biggest thing about high school is you have a lot of free time, enjoy it, make the most out of it. But a lot of people will say, like, I need to get a 4.9. And yes, that could be helpful in getting like in an Ivy League or something like that. But I also have heard that it also depends on the programs. Let's say you want to go pre-med, which is what we're going to be talking about today. Look at the kind of programs that they have for pre-meds at different schools. Let's say there's a certain specific program called X. I don't know, I'm making a random name. X at one of the top schools in the nation. And if you really want that program and that's something you're very interested on, then yeah, high school definitely matters because you want a high GPA to get in there and be competitive. But if you're more on the fence of like, hey, I just want to be a pre-med, I'm okay with biochemistry, chemistry, which is offered at a lot of colleges, then that's where more of the college location, college teaching styles, environment, all that kind of matters more. And as long as you have decent stats, then I think overall, like, I'm not an admissions person, but from what I've heard is definitely okay.
Yeah. I think the main thing you need in high school is good grades. Like keep your grades up. Like you'll maximize your opportunities by doing that, and get into pretty much any school that you might want. Additionally, you want scholarships, right? That is very important. You want to get scholarships from the schools that you want, which means not just getting into the schools, but being one of the top applicants.
I think a lot of that comes with like community service because I know a lot of my friends and they probably didn't touch community service or anything like that, volunteer related stuff in high school. But you have so much time in high school, get that stuff started. And then if you're able to carry that on like through into college, that's amazing because a lot of applicants start doing their volunteer stuff their freshman and sophomore year. So that's like 3 or 4 years. But if you're able to start that your sophomore year of high school, that turns into 7. 6, 7. I mean, that shows a lot of commitment to that one group.
Yeah. At the same time, kind of just, even just backtracking away from, academics and stuff, I feel like this stuff, sure, you can do it in high school, but at the same time, if you don't, I think you're totally okay.
Exactly.
It takes definitely a lot of motivation to, to go out and do a ton of extracurriculars that aren't of like your maximum interest. I mean, because I feel like high school is a really awkward time for a lot of people where you're transitioning from being kind of like in your adolescent years, from being like this like 13, 14-year-old until you're entering that young adulthood. And it's like you're figuring out a lot of things emotionally on top of doing school, on top of like, all of whatever other things you could be doing. Right? I feel like it's okay to cut yourself some slack, especially in high school, because it's better to cut yourself slack in high school than in college. You should always cut yourself slack, but like it's easier to take your time in high school, or it's better to take your time in high school to like drastic. Take time to mature, to take time to know yourself before you get to college. So that way you are solidified in like who you are, and you don't kind of can avoid really any sort of crisis that maybe you might encounter.
In other words, I think that's a great point. Is like explore in high school.
Yeah.
Find what you enjoy, because when you're in college, you're not gonna have that opportunity to always just be exploring. While in high school, you have a lot of that. Yeah, you may meet a lot of people who are kind of trying to figure out their career path and like what they exactly want to do in college, and you might be able to get kind of a better idea. Whereas in college, it's still very possible that you could start on, like, let's say you're on a finance track and you switch to pre-med or vice versa, but it also sets you back a little bit sometimes, especially with the pre-med track where you have so many prerequisites, other classes, and like the majors might be longer. So with those type of things, and there's a lot of prereqs to a lot of these courses, so it might set you back like a year or a semester or something like that. So that's something to keep in mind.
And we did talk about how some students definitely want to keep their GPAs high. They want to get the highest GPA so that we can get into, like, whatever school you'd want to get into, and get whatever scholarships that you can get. But at the same time, I think something that should be discussed that is very underrated is community college. Personally, I mean, us three didn't go to community college, so I think that we maybe are not like super authoritative on how, on like basically just information regarding it. But I do have one friend who is a pre-med, a year younger, who went to community college for a year and took a lot of credits, so that way she was able to transfer after 1 year of community college, which isn't necessary. Like, you totally don't have to do that. You could definitely take 2 years. It just depends on how many credits you have going into community college through like AP credits. But at the same time, it's like she was able to graduate from community college and then transfer to UCI, where she got a really good scholarship, and was able to get like honors and stuff because she did well in community college, right? And I think that that's just a super underrated underrated path. Yeah, because a lot of people 100%. Don't really consider. A lot of people say, "Oh, I have to get into like the best college that I can," and any other college below is like not worth my time or whatever. But
then this is more for pre-meds too.
Yeah, but like, well, I think even if you're not pre-med, community college I think is just super underrated.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I think even if I look back on it now, not saying that I would have rather gone to community college, but I think it's something that I shouldn't have been so scared of at the time of when I was applying to colleges.
I think you just hear a lot of your friends like, oh, I want to go to UCLA, I want to go to UCI and all those big name schools. And then it starts in a way putting a smoke screen onto community colleges as if it's like bad in a way.
It has a terrible reputation.
Yeah, and I think one, it's cost effective. Mm-hmm. Two, like, you have a higher transfer rate, like depending on the community college you go into. So it might be a little easier to go from community college to UCLA, for example, if you didn't get in the first try and you really want to go to UCLA. Let's say your family members, your entire family went to UCLA and you want to continue that lineage, so that you could do that, But I think I could talk on that too, because I have a really close family friend who also is currently at Stanford Med, third year, on a close to full ride, I think. He did 2 years of community college and then transferred to UCLA, full ride UCLA, and then got into Stanford Med. One thing he told me was, when I was applying to colleges, was don't be afraid for community colleges, because what he noticed was when, as a bio major at UCLA, all the community college people that transferred in were doing a lot better than most of the people that have been there for the full 4 years. And the reason for that is because you get burnt out during those first 2 years, because there's a lot of weed out classes. And then a lot of the community college people that are coming in, they've kind of had an easier in a way easier time, and the time to really explore it and enjoy it. Whereas,
so much sense.
And they come in and they're well energized, well kind of determined to reach that end 4 years, because they're now at 4 year that they could really take their degree in. So keep that in mind. And it's med schools are not going to look at it and be like, hey, you did 2 years at a community college. Like,
not really.
That's not going to happen.
Yeah, I think one thing too is, this is kind of talking aside from being pre-med, but even for students who don't know what they want to go into at all, like, I think community college is a great place to start. And this is, just from what I've heard, because you don't have to declare a major right from the start. Like, for us in biology majors at Chapman, when we say we're bio majors, like our first semester, we're taking intro bio, intro chem, or calculus 1,
all the bio stuff, basically.
Yeah, instead of taking GEs first. But then if you think you need a little bit more time to decide, community college can definitely, set you on that path to help you kind of explore or at least get those GEs done. So that way, by the time you do graduate, you can, transfer those over and not have to worry about taking them once you're actually at the university, you're at your 4-year university.
Because the last thing you want to do is spend $70,000 on your first 2 years where you're unsure. But let's say you go through community college, you're spending a lot, like drastically less money on that, and you're able to explore, meet people who might be majoring in that major that you're interested in, or they might have a different perspective on it, and things like that. You're able to explore it, and once you have your mind a lot more set, then you're able to say, hey, I want to go to this school and transfer to it. Or let's say you think that community college is what you want to do for the 4 years, go for it. You're going to be saving a lot of money. But I would say for pre-med courses specifically, you definitely, if you go with the community college route, you want to try to transfer out after those 2 years just because your science courses, a lot of med schools require them to be at a 4-year university, and that's one of the reasons you need to transfer it. Transfer to a 4-year and then take those classes.
Well, unless you're starting at a community college.
Oh, really?
Then then it's more. I think it's more understandable because
I didn't know that.
Because if you're at a community college, it's not like you can take those classes at a 4-year. Because
that's a
it's
good
like
point.
because I don't think that they would expect you to jam all of your prereqs into 2 years, to the 2 years that you're in a 4-year because. Well, one, that's kind of unrealistic because you have to take so many prereqs just to get to like the upper division ones. I think it's more of the fact that if you're at a 4-year and you have the choice to take it either at your 4-year institution or at community college, they would like to see that you're taking it at the 4-year.
Good point.
Yeah, because community college, if you're in community college, you don't have as much of a choice on where you want to take it compared to, being at a 4-year and then taking it at a community college.
Well, community college scores might count. But AP scores don't for med school.
That was a good transition.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk?
Yeah. So
it's pretty simple, but
pretty important. If you take an AP Bio or AP Chem in high school, it's not going to count for med school prerequisites. So
for a lot of med schools,
most med schools. Yeah.
Some will accept AP credits, but not all of them. So to keep the most doors open, it's recommended that you take at least the med school prereqs that you don't use your AP credits for them. Definitely transfer your AP credits so that way you can get credits for like transfer credits for those classes, but you would ideally want to be retaking just the ones that are required for med school, which we covered in a previous episode.
And it also doesn't discredit AP classes because one, it's better preparing you for those college level classes, right? So when you're in college, you're able to really I almost broke my knuckle. You're able to really remember those contents and build on it, right? So you're gonna have a little bit easier of a time adjusting. But two, this is I think very helpful, especially if you're a commuter like I am. If you have a lot of AP credits, one, that's gonna give you a boost on your amount of credits, and it's gonna give you better priority in registration, which is super helpful. Everyone usually is always complaining about, hey, I don't have priority for registration, and you end up having the later classes or the times that people don't really want for their class. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, AP classes are good, but I think they are still a little overrated in terms of high school. I think there's minor benefits in college, like the registration boost, and maybe a slight boost to your GPA in high school. But I would say if you're concerned about taking an AP class, you think you're going to get a B or a C, just don't. I don't see why you would take an AP score long term or an AP class.
I don't know. I think it's fine. I think if it's a subject that you're interested in, I don't think you should be worried about, should I take this class if I'm worried about getting a
just
B
take
or
the
a C?
regular class form of the class.
I think if you're interested in the subject matter, you might as well. And it also kind of depends on what class it is too, because for me, or for the way it was for my high school, is that you take biology, whether it be normal or honors, as a freshman or sophomore, and then you have the choice of taking AP Bio later. You don't have any other choice of bio classes. So it's if you want to take a bio class as a junior or senior, the only choice you have is AP Bio.
And that comes down to the high school too. So
yeah, but either way,
that comes down to high school.
But one thing I will say, I think taking regular, let's say we're talking about AP Bio and regular Bio. I think it'd be better to just take regular Bio and get an A in it than take AP Bio and get a C in it.
That's what I'm saying.
Because that closes doors for when you're applying to colleges.
At the same time, you don't really know what grade you're gonna get.
That's true.
I avoided most AP
totally
classes. I avoided most AP classes unless I knew I would get an A in them.
Really?
I mean, The only AP class I got, I think less than an A. I think I may have gotten an AP minus an AP or AP minus an A minus in AP Chem. But other than that, I didn't take AP Bio. I took honors anatomy instead. And it just like it reduced my schedule. It allowed me to have more fun, do more extracurriculars, do more service, other things that I wanted to do in high school. And I wasn't bogged down with I didn't take AP Calc. I took calculus in a community college during high school, which was way easier than it would have been to take AP Calc at my high school because it was really hard.
I think my opinions on AP classes is if I could go back, what I would do, and this is more of my opinion on things, so take it with a grain of salt, is I would have never taken any AP histories because I unless I really wanted.
Well,
okay. The reason I
didn't take any
histories would help
histories.
you though.
What?
AP history would help you though with GEs.
Well, I think only one of them can.
Yeah.
Only one of the AP histories. Which one is it? I forgot.
I didn't take
one
any
of
of them.
one of the AP histories
No,
can
I didn't
help
take
you
them
with a
either.
GE. So AP Gov can help you with a GE.
Yeah, or econ.
No, and then AP Econ as well helps you with the GE. So those two definitely recommend. Those two classes were so fun for me. I'm not gonna lie. If I could go back, I would for sure take those two. AP Bio I think could be beneficial in a way where it prepares you in a decent amount for Gen Bio. AP Chemistry, same thing. And this again is for pre-meds. AP Physics, I don't.
Don't take AP Physics.
I wouldn't take
Wait,
it.
why?
Don't take AP Chem either. There's
Really?
no reason to.
I thought AP Chem was.
No,
I would say to
No,
Just don't.
I think people. It's all what you think you can handle.
That's true.
I mean, because I don't think that anyone should ever be discouraged from taking a class that they want to take. Like, if you want to take it,
Yes,
then take it.
there's no black and whites, but my opinion, you shouldn't.
I wish I
generally-
took AP Physics.
You think so? Really?
Yeah, because I would have an easier time in physics. Like, I'd be able to understand more things. Like, for me, the reason why AP Bio is so helpful is because I learned so much in that class, and that stuff still applies to like biochem, and it'll probably even apply to other classes that I'll take.
But the
still.
issue is AP Physics in a lot of high schools isn't calc based. It's algebra based.
I don't know.
So in that case, you're going to be learning the material very differently. So for example, let's say you take AP Physics. Yeah, you might know the general concepts, but actually applying them, which is what matters, I feel like you're still going to be brand new concepts.
Maybe.
Yeah. So
I mean, it depends, but I don't know. I err on the side of, if you're interested and you want to take a class, like, you shouldn't hold yourself back from it because you're scared that you might not get a good grade in it. Like, because you don't know what's going to happen. I think for me, one problem and this is just like my opinion, I think we all have different opinions, and that's fine.
that's the entire point of this podcast, is to hear different
But for me is that my junior year, like, I didn't take AP Chem or AP Bio like most people did. Instead, I took AP Environmental Science, which was generally like easier, quote unquote. But the reason why I did it was because I didn't really, believe that I would be able to succeed in those classes. I kind of held myself back from like saying like, okay, I'm just going to take this class so that way I can get a good GPA. When I look back on it now, I kind of wish that I pushed myself and that I took these classes so that way I would have learned more and it would have helped me a lot more like later on. And that's something I didn't really think about. But at the same time, it's like I held myself back a little when I definitely could have done it. I realized near the end of junior year that I was like, you know what? I can do this. I can take AP Bio. I might struggle. I might get a B, but I think it's a good test for myself to see whether or not, I can actually succeed being a pre-med, for one, but two, that I'm invested in, that I like the subject, right? And so I think that those are very, I think that they're definitely reasons that people should take these certain classes to try to to challenge yourself. You shouldn't do it to save face, to like save your GPA, because you don't know what's going to happen at the end of the day.
One thing I want to touch up on is, let's say things don't go right. Let's say you take a class and you get like a D or a C. That doesn't mean you're not going to succeed in it in college.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, for example, I didn't do so well in AP Bio. Came to college, did way better in college level bio. All of that comes with maturity, learning how to study, really teaching styles, unfortunately, matter a lot, in my opinion. And at the end of the day, like, I totally agree that don't hold back on things like that. But at the same time, it's high school at the end of the day. So if, let's say you do cut down on your APs, that community service that you're going to get involved in, instead of like studying for those AP courses, are kind of going to even it out, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like, there's definitely going to be retrospective bias in like what I say next. But basically, like, I wish that I took like AP Chem and I took AP Physics, and suffered a lower GPA because it would help me so much more now. I feel like I would have learned so much that would have done a lot more for me now than than the fact that I didn't take it.
But then that would take away time from everything else, though.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's multiple perspectives for sure. Yeah. I think preparing yourself with difficult high school classes is a great philosophy. I think if you're interested in med school and you're kind of under the impression that high school won't matter so much once you're applying for med school, which we all know it won't, I think it's plenty fine to not take those AP classes and focus more on things you enjoy while you're in high school and getting some good experiences that will help you further understand what you want to do for a career. So, and maybe the classes are those experiences for some people. I mean, if you're interested in physics, take physics. But
I would say high school physics was so much funner than.
I've heard my school's physics is like really hard, and I heard they went over like electricity and magnetism, which is why I wish I took it.
We went over electricity and magnetism as well, but it was it was algebra, super algebra.
I didn't have AP physics, but I took honors physics, and it was really hard, but it was pretty fun. So it prepared me though.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I think something that we didn't really mention that we just should clarify is, once you graduate high school and you come to college, like, all your GPA, all your grades, basically everything you do will get reset. So much to the point where you shouldn't, after your freshman year, you shouldn't have anything from high school on your resume. Like, that's how much it resets.
But one thing I'll add, there's I think one exception to that. Let's say you're a pre-med, you obviously expect to do community service and things like that, right? Let's say you started some community service sophomore, freshman year of high school and you've been very involved in it, that you could keep on there as long as you're still progressively doing it in college.
Yeah.
So if you're part of certain organizations, that's fine to keep if like you're still doing it and you're planning on doing it for the rest of college. Like, keep that on there. That shows a lot of commitment, I'm sure if you've been in that organization for 6-7 years at the end of college, that you're gonna have you must have had some type of impact on it, right? Because you've held on to it for so long. Mm-hmm. So those are really good talking points. One on your application and the interview, because if you have 8-9 years on something, not many people do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's definitely gonna be questions like, hey, like, why did you stay with this organization for 9 years? Like, what did you get out of it? Did you have any impacts on it? All those things are going to be asked, and it's to make you a very intriguing person to talk to during your interview process.
Yeah, absolutely.
So lastly, and for this subject, is, well, do you want to talk about, did this surprise us?
I think the biggest surprise to me was APs, because they're emphasized in high school that they're the most important thing ever, and you have to do them. They are not.
At least for pre-meds.
For pre-meds, exactly. 2, I think the second thing is everyone says college is so much harder than high school. Some classes are not, and it really depends. So, for example, AP English, right? It was so strict. It was so difficult to get really good papers. Because it was so strict, I think it made me a better writer. But in college, I don't think it's as strict as in high school.
Oh, no, not at all.
Yeah, I think it definitely depends, though. I mean, because we definitely went to high schools that were
very difficult.
Generally, known as to be difficult or more intensive.
I think Stanford did a study on our English department, and it was one of the top in the nation for Beckman because of how it was very it was hard, dude. I remember, I think it was junior year. For English honors, we were when you come into class, there was a pop quiz, and this was, in my opinion, one of the stupidest things you could possibly do to students in high school. Is you would have to read a chapter, right? You come in, you pull a quote out of the hat before you enter the class, and it was what page is this on?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, are you serious? That doesn't prove anything.
That's ridiculous.
And that was to an extent very difficult because, yeah, you might have read that quote and it could have been really important, but how do you know what page it came from? You know it came from this chapter and the context of it, but why does the page number matter? So that was one thing.
Yeah, for me, I don't know how exaggerated the story is, but one time I feel I remember there was a situation where you know how all high schools will take standardized tests? I heard there was one situation at my high school where people didn't care so much about the standardized test, and they just cared about like studying and doing well in their classes, that everyone like the whole year like BS like the standardized testing and just hit like A or something for every single question, so that way they could like do more studying or something.
No, that happened at Beckman. Something very similar. One year, because
wow,
I think you could get a scholarship depending on your practice SAT, right? Score, something like that. I think there's something like that.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
So a lot of us didn't know that, and like people just didn't care. So they gave you like a whole day to do the PSAT, and then so many people finished within like 30 minutes just because they were just spamming through it. Yeah. I remember I did that, to be honest.
I mean, it does not matter. Your PSAT, absolutely not.
Yeah, I mean, I know for some of these standardized tests, I mean, like the school might get more or less funding, I think, depending on how high you rank, but I don't really know.
Yeah, but we had to talk about that. I remember.
Yeah, our schools are jank.
Yeah.
I guess it's an Irvine thing.
Yeah. So one thing that we should also talk about is, does going to does what college you go to matter?
It depends.
What are your guys' thoughts?
I think Dr. Schwartz, one of our professors, I talking to her about this, and she had a really good point. She said what matters is, like, yeah, you go through college, but you want to do well. You want to make sure that you're successful as a person and you're able to maintain your morals and values. Because when you go to med school, at first, the med school itself doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, you're going to get your MD or your DO, whatever. But what really matters in the grand scheme of things is your residency.
Wait, I'm talking about, like, does what college you go to matter? Like what, like undergrad?
Yeah, so I'm going to get to that.
Okay.
So what really matters at the end of the day is what residency you end up in, because that's what's going to connect you into your future career. And that comes back to undergraduate college, because as long as you're able to kind of do well in that college, really show who you are by doing extracurriculars and make connections, that's what matters in the college, right? And if you could go to UCLA, you could go to Brown, you could go to Stanford as an undergrad. That doesn't guarantee you a spot in med school, right? There's a lot of people who go from community college to med school. It's because they show who they are. It's what they've done that matters. So as long as you're able to do that at college, that's what matters. And for that reason, I don't think that your undergraduate college matters as much. But I think where it matters is depending on the type of program that you want. So whether it's a specific major that you want to do, that matters. Two, if you want to do some type of like a bridge program between a pre-med major and the med school that college has, there's a lot of those programs out there. I know UCR has that, UCI has that, but those are very difficult though, because they only take the top 2 or top 5 students like that are pre-med into that bridge program. Mm-hmm. So, and I think someone at UCI, I don't remember who told me this, was telling me that they had to maintain like a full 4.0 GPA on the MCAT. They were required to, and then if they did that, then the MCAT was waived, and they could go into the UCI med school. So those type of programs, they could be helpful. And if you think that's really interested, like you're interested in that, go for it. You might not have to take the MCAT, and you could get into med school.
That makes sense.
Other programs might have some more restrictions where you need to maintain a 4.0, but then on the MCAT, as long as you get like a 415 or something. 515. 515. Going like this. Like a 515, you're guaranteed an interview. Those things could be helpful. So look into those, and if those are things that interest you, then it matters where you go for college. But if that's not something you care about and you just want to do your thing and show your values, your morals, and your interests and your hobbies, then that doesn't matter. You could do those at whatever college you go. And if that college doesn't have it, then great. That gives you an opportunity to be an initiator. You get to start that at that college. You get to kind of bring that community together at that college for the first time. It's a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, just to comment on that, personally, I really don't. I'm kind of an advocate for, where you go. I mean, aside from what Mo said, just in general, where you go to college doesn't really matter. Like, they're just necessarily the prestige of your college doesn't really matter. It might matter in some senses, but overall, I think that what Mo was saying was pretty accurate. And this was definitely something I wish I heard when I was selecting 100%. Colleges. And so we'll say it to you right now. It does not really matter, like, where you go to for undergrad. And one thing to kind of point that out is the fact that there's a lot of statistics, and in a way, not necessarily that they're deceptive, but you just have to think critically about them. Because let's say that, like, school school X. I'll go to like your variables, but let's say school X. Overall, it's like they're a big public school, and every single year they turn over like 200 or 300 of their students get into med school every single year, but then their overall population's like, I don't know, like what's a big population, like
70 or
6,000
for pre-meds?
Like what's a big school?
Big school, UCLA, dude, and they have so many.
Well, how many, like what's a number though? How many students they have?
For pre-meds or like total?
Total.
Probably like 80,000.
Okay, yeah. So if they have like, let's say they have 80,000 students, and but they are like the biggest
45,000.
Okay, 45. Yeah, it sounds better.
Yeah.
They have like 45,000 students, but they're able to get like 500, like whatever, like 200, 500 of them, or basically a lot, into med school every year. And one thing that you have to think about is the fact that yes, they are getting so many students into med schools. You also think about the fact that there's a lot of people who are pre-med. There's a lot of people who
are very good.
Yeah, a lot of people might drop out of being pre-med, or basically like everyone who stops being pre-med, everyone who kind of like, is pre-med and then isn't pre-med by the end of college, like that, none of that is reported, right? And so you have to think about the fact that, yeah, there's a lot of people going, but then there's also a lot of people who are, dropping pre-med along the way too.
And just to prove your point, right? UCLA every year has 1,149 UCLA pre-meds that apply to med school. Now, that doesn't tell you how many started off. It tells you how many ended.
Yeah.
Or how many got in. I mean.
No. This is telling you how many applied to med school.
How many applied to med school.
So that at the end of the 4 years, you had that many left. So I can't imagine how many started off as pre-meds and just got weeded out.
That's very
true.
So
I think a very good saying is statistics apply to populations, not individuals.
Yeah, but no slander on UCLA.
Yeah.
We love you guys.
UCLA is
and like clearly their pre-meds that end up at the 4 years, like they're very successful. Like it says 53% were accepted. 10% points higher than the national average.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure if you look at like
really
all
good.
the California med school class demographics,
UCLA is top.
UCLA is at the top of like every single one. I think.
Absolutely. I would say that. Yeah.
It's more difficult to get to the end of like the pre-med track at UCLA.
More
but
rewarding.
if you're able to do that, it's a lot more rewarding.
Yep.
I would say.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I feel like
because you had to work harder, so generally you're going to be more prepared for med school and have a better application.
But it's hard. It's hard to really distinguish if someone actually did work harder. I mean, it's
because
not
we
like,
haven't gone there too.
Like we are not students at UCLA. We have not ever been students at UCLA, and we never will be like undergrad students at UCLA at least. So it's like it's hard to really kind of compare that.
Yeah. So there's a lot that goes into it for sure.
Yeah.
So I think
because we work hard. I think.
I hope I do.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So I think like definitely like make your own. I think the biggest thing about this podcast is you're hearing so many different perspectives, student perspectives, on different things. And clearly we don't all agree on specific things in certain points, and we do agree on certain points. And that's the entire point of it. We all have different backgrounds and different opinions. But the thing is, I think the biggest takeaway from this is make your own opinion. We're trying to give everyone resources so that you could formulate your own opinion depending on your demographic and what you want to do with your career.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. You shouldn't not go to UCLA just because we kind of said you don't need to in a way, right? Or don't let it discourage you because we said that the statistics apply to populations and not individuals. Those are just sayings, and that's what we kind of believe. Yeah. But at the end of the day, if you're able to make your own kind of opinion on something, then you're gonna be happy about it because it was something you wanted to do, and then no matter what happens, you could look back and be like, hey, this is why I made that decision. I didn't listen to someone, and at that point you learn from it.
But overall, any college or any university that you can go to is going to be a good choice. It's going to be a good university. Like I think I've heard that a lot of them are a lot more similar than they actually seem.
Oh yeah,
their curriculum is a lot more similar than they see than like some people can say.
The college is not what's going to get you into med school. You are going to get you into med school. I think that's the biggest thing. It's what you are doing in college that's going to get you into med school. But there's definitely a lot to take away in this episode. High school really depends. I think the biggest answer is it depends, right? We gave you guys so many different perspectives on it, so make up your own opinion.
Make it up.
But I think what the biggest things in high school and what matters is, one, you're establishing study methods, techniques. 2, developing who you are, right? Through the different things that you're doing, through the different like friend groups that you are working with and really being involved in, whether it's sports, whether it's music, all those things matter because that's who's going to make you you. And when you're going to college, you're going to have that personality that's going to be very interesting and you're able to build off of that. 3 is develop independence because a lot of college is kind of doing your own thing and studying on your own and learning those type of study techniques. And 4 is should you do research in high school? And I'll pass it on to Todd because he did that.
I didn't do research in high school. I did
it right after?
Once I graduated. Okay. But I do know some people. I found this out after, but I've heard of some people who actually did research during high school, and I think there's some programs that will do that.
I know Chapman does that.
Yeah, yep. So I was like, dang, you can do that? Because I didn't even know research existed until after I graduated. So I think if that's something that people can do, like that would definitely give you
a head start.
A step up.
Totally.
Yeah, there's some programs where you can get really good scholarships by doing research for like a particular college while you're in high school. So look into that. But generally speaking, it's probably not worth it to do research in high school.
Wait, what? No, I think it is.
Unless you have a good opportunity, right? I never even heard the word research in high school.
No.
That's why I think it's a great thing to do. If you
I think it's a great thing to do in high school too.
It's
because
not,
you can
it's
get
not
an opportunity.
Essential. It's great. Sure, if you have access to it. I literally never heard one word about research.
No, it's not essential, but I think if you have the ability to do it, go for it 100%.
Yeah, if you're into it. Yeah.
Because 1, you're getting a head start on it and you're able to figure it out so you're not wasting time in college.
Yeah.
2, if it's something you're enjoying and you're doing it at college, I think it'll give you like something to talk about when you're applying to that college.
Yeah.
Get you into it and you're able to continue that from the first year.
And the thing is that so many like a very low % of college students actually do research. And so think about how many high schoolers do it. Yeah. So I think it's a great thing to do.
But it's not something you have to do.
It's not something you have to do. But
at all.
If you can, and we're telling you now, research exists. If you can try to find an opportunity to do it as a high schooler, I say do it.
But Nathan does bring up a good point though, is it's not something a lot of us really heard before.
If you don't do it, it's fine.
Yeah, does volunteering exist in high school and service and all that stuff that would be beneficial for pre-med. So I think do whatever you have access to in general. And man, if I had heard the word research in high school, I definitely wouldn't have done it. So I don't know how many people would do that.
So again, different perspectives on things, but there's a lot to take away, and we'd love to hear more about your perspectives on high school, more about your experiences in high school. If you have questions in your high school and you're applying and things like that, feel free to DM us, comment on our different videos. Our Spotify, I think, has a comment section too. Just reach out. We're more than happy to help you out. And I think Med School Boys, shout out to them because they were helping me out with a lot of the Texas A&M Med School stuff and their program.
Yeah.
And that meant a lot. So if I'm able to do that to someone in high school, I'd really be happy. So, and I'm sure Todd and Nathan would too. So really, don't be scared. Reach out. That's why we're doing this. We want to help people out.
Yeah, I mean, we're not big time celebrities, guys.
Exactly.
We're seriously guys, students doing something for fun. So.
Yeah, if you're in high school and you're listening right now, please reach out to us.
Okay,
we want to help you out.
So, what's the most pre-med thing to say?
The most pre-med thing to say: do research in high school.
Yeah, that was pretty.
That is so much.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks everybody for listening. This has been another episode of Theory Pre-Med. Make sure you tune in on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts
YouTube.
from. Or YouTube. Or TikTok too, eventually.
This week we'll have TikTok.
Yeah, this week. And every Tuesday at 8 a.m.
Goodbye.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.